Welcome to Beyond Hormones, the Business of Wellness, the podcast for hormone and functional medicine providers who want a thriving, predictably profitable practice and maybe a little less stress along the way. Hi, I'm your host, Jody Lane, and I've worked with lots of clinics in marketing, sales, and business development, and I have seen what works and what doesn't. And here's what I believe. Hormone and wellness care should be available to everyone who wants it. And while providers know the medicine, many struggle with the business side of their cash practice. And that's where I come in. See, this podcast is here to share real strategies, real stories, things you can implement in your practice right away. So I am so glad you're here. Come on, let's go. Hey friends, welcome back to Beyond Hormones, the Business of Wellness. If you've ever felt like running a hormone or wellness practice is this constant tug of war between helping people and figuring out how to grow the business, you're in the right place, because today's episode is one of those conversations that's both inspiring and super practical. I'm talking with Annika Carter, a nurse practitioner and clinic owner in California who started in weight loss, added hormone replacement, built a membership model, and she's done it while staying lean and smart with her team. But the part I really want you to listen for is what she says about marketing, because she's not out there throwing money at ads. She's winning with something simple that most clinics overlook: education and patient experience. We're sharing the strategy that she calls the Hormone Happy Hour, how it fills her schedule and how she converts those attendees into labs and consults without any pressure, and what she's learned about hiring, culture, and staying in your lane. So if you want more patients in your practice, more retention from your patients, and a business that feels less chaotic, well, then stick with me and let's jump in and hear from Annika Carter. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. I am very excited today because I have a friend and a provider who's on today who I've worked with a little bit in the past, named Annika Carter. Annika, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Yeah, appreciate the opportunity to speak with you.
Absolutely. So why don't you start by just telling everybody who you are, what your clinic is, where you're
Yep,
located, and what do you do in your clinic?
sure. So I'm a nurse practitioner, and my practice is located in Roseville, California, which is just outside of Sacramento. And our primary focus is, I would say, we're a wellness practice. So we started out as a weight loss practice, and a few years ago, I ran into Neil at a conference and thought, wow. And so got certified in hormones, and we started doing hormone replacement for a lot of our patients. And we've been doing a lot of that. We have a membership program for hormones for both men and women. And then we also do a lot of work with weight loss, GLP-1s, and life. We do a lot of work with lifestyle. So it's sort of an integrated practice. I like to combine a few different things to look at health span and to try and expand the health span for
So first of
patients.
all, thank you for doing that, because I love when I hear practices that offer GLP-1s, but also teach lifestyle practices so that when they eventually go off the GLP-1s, there's not like a setback. So that's amazing. In case, so I can't imagine anyone who's listening to this show would know who Neil is, but just in case, why don't you say who Neil is and what you learned from him?
Yeah, so Dr. Neil Rouzier is a amazing speaker and educator for practitioners who are interested in hormone replacement. And he's part of WorldLink Medical, and it's really an organization that follows the science when it comes to hormone replacement. There's a lot of information out there, and there's a lot of different directions that one could go. But when I heard him speak, I really thought, oh, well, here's a guy who is doing it right, who's following science, so that we get this right, because there's been so much misinformation out there. And even just last week we had a group of providers speaking to the FDA about removing the black box warning from estradiol, and that's been years, 20 years in the making, and we're still like arguing about it.
Absolutely. Yeah. So you said that you brought hormones in when you went
Mhm.
to that conference, but I can't that can't be the only reason. Like what was present for you with weight loss where you thought, wow, now that I know this is going to help my patients?
I think doing weight loss for so many years before starting hormone therapy, what I was seeing is a lot of myself. So I went through menopause at 40, and there were no people to help me with that. And
Yeah.
so, just like the standard journey, I kind of looked around. I was working for a doctor at the time, and he told me to try some creams. And I did, and they made me a little crazy. And that led me down a path to figuring that out. But I also was struggling with weight. I was struggling with all of those menopausal things. And when I finally found how to do it right, I stopped struggling with all those things. So I wasn't going back and losing that same 10 pounds over and over again, like I see so many patients do. And I wasn't struggling to like not get injured when I was working out, because that was something I really liked to do. I'm an athlete, but I'd stopped working out, I'd stopped all kinds of things. And it just really, it was a mirror from my life. And I started seeing in my patients coming to me, them coming back over and over and over again to lose that same 10 to 15 pounds. And it was really because their hormones were off.
Wow. Think about it. You're an athlete, you're a nurse
Mhm.
practitioner, you're in
Yep.
the wellness space, you're in weight loss, and yet you were struggling. What does
100%.
that say for the average person that doesn't have all the background you do?
Well, that's what I thought. And I thought, well, if I have trouble navigating this, what is someone who doesn't come from a medical background, doesn't have a background in athletics, like those kinds of things? How is this person navigating this space? And frankly, as a nurse practitioner, I feel like you're kind of like a mile wide and an inch deep. You have to know a little bit about a lot of things, and then you really aren't doing too much to help people.
Right.
And what I was doing in my weight loss practice was helping people lose weight, but then I saw that they were coming back and trying to lose it over again. And I thought, well, that's not the answer. So
Yeah.
that led me to really look at it as a more integrative approach. Like there's more than just weight loss here. And that's why it's so important to me with, the GLP-1s. You can get, something from Roe for 150 bucks a month. And all of those people are going to, no, not all, but most of those people are going to fail out of that and do it over again, simply because they're not addressing the root cause of what's
Absolutely.
wrong.
Yeah. So let's go back to the beginning. Let's turn a little bit away from the medicine, a little more to the business. So when you opened your clinic, what year did you open the clinic first?
2012.
2012. So in
Mhm.
2012, when you decided to open the weight loss clinic, what was the catalyst for you deciding to be an entrepreneur?
I think I'm just not great at working for others. I'm pretty
Okay, that's a good
opinionated.
reason.
And I realized that, I kind of have my own um, the way that I think things should be, maybe butts heads with a lot of other people. And
Gotcha.
so
Okay.
I just had really specific ideas about what I wanted to accomplish, and I felt very confined within traditional medicine to do that.
Okay, that's very, very valid. And what did you do in those early days to get that message out there? Like, how did you get what you wanted to do for patients out to the world so that patients came to you to get it?
Well, I did some marketing with I there somewhere. I have told my wife this. I don't know. She hasn't found them yet, but there's some YouTube videos out there. So I was
Oh, I'm gonna go
posting
look for them.
videos. I had was working with a guy who said, "Oh yeah, you got to do marketing through YouTube. You got to do a lot of this." So I was talking about weight loss and talking about health and all of those kinds of things. And then once I started working with patients, we had success stories, and it's the same with weight loss and hormones. Like you do something for someone and it's successful, and there are certain people that they're gonna tell 15 friends.
Yeah.
And that's really, it's sort of the weight loss piece of it sort of blew up in that way. And we became very successful. And even through the pandemic, we were delivering, medication to people's houses. I was running around in my Tesla delivering medication to people. So yeah.
Oh, healthcare taxi. I love it. So that's great. So, I mean, that's so perfect. You kind of touched on two really important things. You have to get out there and teach. That's
Mm,
half of what marketing in our wellness space is just teaching and
100%.
educating people. And then they probably had a good experience when they came in. So besides the results, is there anything else that you and your office did to make sure they had a good patient experience?
I think just being that resource for people, because people, as they are going through any kind of a weight loss journey, are going to have questions.
Yeah.
And so knowing that, we're not just going to, give a drug and then run away. We're going to educate, we're going to help them through the process. And, we had maintenance programs at the time. And, all of those things were working to some extent, but there was
Yeah.
still that missing piece from my perspective that was hormones.
So you were here, you were doing really well, you're moving
Mhm.
up the ladder. People can't see me and what I'm doing, but you're moving up the ladder. Things are starting to progress, patients are coming in. Then you bring in hormones. Was there any kind of a business shift you had to do, or a marketing shift, or a staff shift that you had to do to bring that in, or did you kind of do it kind of gradually?
It started gradually, but
Okay.
as we grew our patient base, and we worked with you guys, we worked with the Greenleaf Group to help us with our pricing model and how to do a membership. model because that was foreign to us. But then we needed to hire a patient care coordinator, someone who could walk through that process with patients and things like that. So yeah, but we still have a very thin staff. I have a medical assistant. I've got a director of ops who kind of like holds me together. That's
Hmm.
Jennifer Becker. I know you've met her. And
Yeah.
then I have a receptionist and, a part-time patient care coordinator. So we're lean and mean by necessity. And so I do 3 days a week in Roseville, and then I have one day a week in Marin. I started last year, I started going to Marin and helping women there. We actually did a couple of informational sessions, which is just like educational sessions. We called it Hormone Happy Hour. And that's probably been the most successful thing that we've done to get new patients. And because we're just educating people. So we're sitting down with the PowerPoint that I think we developed with you, and we've kind of taken that a little, since then, and made some modifications to it, but just really educating women, because it's mainly women who come to those sessions, but women have questions, and they're not getting any answers really from primary care or from OB. They're getting a big Heisman that says, yeah, everything's normal, and
Right.
they're not feeling normal.
So I
So
love that you did the hormone happy hour. That is fantastic. Two
mhm.
questions. So just so that when people are listening and they want to repurpose what you've done, because let's face it, this stuff works. What did you do to get people in this chair? And what did you do to convert them to become a new patient after the fact?
So getting people in the chair, I have a relationship with she's actually an NP in the Marin Glow House, Amy Strickland, and she does a lot of Botox and stuff like that. So she sees women all the time who are kind of in this perimenopausal transition. And through another patient of mine, she got to know what I was doing, and she and I started working together. And then she said, "Hey, I have a lot of people who would want to talk to you." And so she really set up the first few that were just like inviting people to learn about hormones. And it was really pretty simple in the beginning, to just do question and answer. We probably spent like an hour or, like 20 minutes with a presentation, and then another half an hour or so answering questions. We offered like, wine and cheese and stuff like that, which we didn't even really need to, but we just wanted to make it very,
Sure.
informal. And the conversion part, like, happened on its own. I think one of the things that you had prepped me about was the difference between where people are now with weight loss and hormones and where they were maybe 5 or 10 years ago. Is I think people are a lot more educated. So women are understanding that, hey, I'm not going to get this from primary care or from OB, and I'm looking outside of that. They're further along that learning curve and
Hmm.
further along that decision making process, so that by the time I met many of these women, they're like, I'm ready to do labs.
Right.
Where do I do my labs?
Can you take my blood right now?
Exactly. Are you ready to take my exactly? Can we do blood work now? And I'm like, so call my office. And, so we put up at the end of a presentation, I just put up, here's my website, and there's a link to go on for new patients and
Mhm.
register. And then my staff reaches out and talks to people about, hey, where do you want to go from here? Do you want more information? Would you like to have like a very specific one-on-one with the provider to talk about your situation and hormones and how that applies? Or do you want to go forward and because she's going to want you to get labs anyway. Do you want to go ahead and do the
Right.
labs and then have that conversation of the lab review to start with?
It's
And
awesome.
so,
So you give them all these options. Like you give
yeah,
them the opportunity to learn in a group. So it's a little bit of anonymity. They're
yeah,
getting their questions answered completely
right.
free. Matter of fact, they're being paid with wine and cheese. And
Yeah.
then they have choices. They can continue to talk to you just generically if they still are uncomfortable. And then if they have the option to get their blood work done, which why would anybody not do that these days? Like get your blood work done. Let's get personal about it.
Yeah, and when we sit down for a lab review, I'm spending about an hour with each person, and I'm going through like their metabolic panel. I'm looking at, what's going on with kidney, what's going on with liver. I'm helping them like say, listen, here's some things you need to pay attention to because long term these, could end up being health issues. So what are some lifestyle things? I'm
Yeah,
incorporating lifestyle from the very looking at health, looking at, risk for cardiovascular disease, risk for type 2 diabetes. We're focusing our attention on that. And then I review those things with them every 6 months to make sure that we're having the effect that we think we're having on those diseases of aging, and we're reducing people's
that's
risk.
awesome.
Yeah,
So
it makes it really fun.
yeah, and that's I think that's probably why you're having such great success because you think it's fun and you are excited about helping people learn. And the end result is the end result. Like I don't get that you're really attached to whether they come and become your patient. You just want
Yeah,
them to know have the information and then choose powerfully.
yeah, absolutely. And I want everybody to be the best like version, whatever it is for them that's important. I have patients. I have a 79-year-old patient who like is she jumps horses, and I'm like, well, yeah, go do what's important to you. And I just got a patient. I got a really great message from a patient. She just came back from climbing Mount Kilimanjaro,
Oh my
and
God.
she thanked me and all this kind of stuff of the being part of her health journey. And I shared that with my team because it's really all of us that are involved. And that's why we do what we do, is so that people can go out and just be the best versions of themselves. I have people who play, are very competitive golfers, and people who are very competitive pickleball players, like whatever
Yeah.
it is. Like, I'm happy to see them just enjoying their lives and moving that health curve further, further down the road so that their health span is extending.
Absolutely. That's so cool. So you had mentioned, which I totally agree with you, that the education level of a patient is much greater now.
Yeah.
So what do you think the expectation of a patient walking into your office today? Forget about whether they saw you at the happy hour first, but like
Mhm.
you now have a more educated patient has more options. What is
100%.
their expectation, do you think, when they walk into your office now versus it was like 5 or 10 years ago?
Well, and part of it is managing that, because some people come in with these expectations that are maybe beyond, what we're capable of doing for them. But I think that they have the expectation that we're going to help them feel better. Really. I mean, that's what they're looking for. I don't know that they necessarily come in looking at like, oh, well, I want to be healthier. But that's
Mm,
something that I am pushing them more and more to focus on. And, providing them with options in terms of, here's some reading materials and things like that. Like, I'm very interested in longevity and like all of the different aspects. Like, there's so many interesting things going on now with longevity science that, we didn't see 10 years ago. And it's
yeah.
exciting.
Yeah,
So,
that's cool. That's cool. So let's switch the topic a little bit to your staff because I
sure.
believe, and if anyone's heard me talk about this before, I believe the staff is probably the most important thing you offer. Like with a great staff, you have a great clinic. With a not so great staff, maybe not so. And you've got amazing women who work in your clinic. How did you
Absolutely.
find them, and how do you ensure that you get people that fit your culture?
I mean, I think that we are very focused on, we're very slow to hire,
Mm,
and we take time in that process. But once we understand that something's not working, we're quick to fire. Like
awesome.
we've had some missteps. It certainly has been, the hiring and staffing process has been painful, as painful for me as probably for any other providers, in that you just have to find a team that clicks together. And I've been, really fortunate to get a group of women who are really caring, who get our mission and what we're there to do, and they're excited about it. And so my staff is primarily menopausal. I have a couple of menopausal women, so they've had life-changing results themselves, and so they're kind of like poster children
Yeah.
for what we do. And then I've got a couple of younger staff members, and I think that they're enthusiastic about being part of someone's journey as well. So, I think just that commitment to patient success, even when, because many times we don't hear the Kilimanjaro stories. We hear all of the, the heartache of people struggling with,
My progesterone was 3 days late. I couldn't
yeah,
sleep for two
exactly.
days. Your office
Uh,
stinks. Yeah.
this is making me, crazy, or this is making me do
Right.
this or that, or they're assigning, they have an eye infection, and of course the hormones
Right.
cause it. I'm like, well, that's not really what happened, but okay, And so, the staff helps me deal with a lot of the, ups and downs of being a provider. So,
I
yeah.
like what you said about being quick to fire. And I think sometimes people hear that term. That's a term that's been out there for a while, quick to fire. But it's not negative.
Mm-mm.
It's not like you're cutting somebody off and saying you're terrible. When
No,
you're quick to fire, what you're saying is there's not a good fit here.
it's just not a great fit for the,
Yeah.
the two of us. And even, is it this, I guess it was last year, we tried a few different, our patient care coordinator is moving on to be a ultrasound technician. She's in school right now, so she's with us part-time, and we've been toying with like replacing that role. And we've had a couple people in to, sort of test drive them in that role, and it hasn't been great. So we're just like, nope, like we're gonna sit on that for a minute and do this, slowly, and do it the right way.
Got it. All right, cool. So,
Yeah.
let's talk about marketing for a moment. So, you've done a
Sure.
lot of marketing in your career. What's a tactic that you did that you didn't expect would work out, but then it did produce some results?
I would say that the informational sessions, like the
Mm,
hormone happy hours stuff, that not the online ones didn't go as well for us, but the in-person stuff, I feel like has been really successful for us. And I was a bit suspect with were suspicious about that. I'm like, people are going to come and just want to drink some wine and,
Right.
eat some cheese and leave. But that went a lot better than what I had expected. And we honestly, we don't do a lot of other marketing. We have our website, TopSpot does our website and our SEO. And so we have done some work with that, and we do a little bit of Yelp advertising and a tiny bit of Google advertising, but, very little in terms of just spending money on marketing. We don't do a lot of that.
SEO is the best place to spend your money.
Hmm.
I agree. I think if you're gonna look for where you're gonna put your marketing budget, it should be in SEO. So
Yeah,
you're
I
doing,
agree.
I agree with that choice. And I find those events so interesting. It seems very cyclical. Sometimes the in-person ones do really well, then all of a sudden people are too busy, and now the online ones do really well. So being able to pivot and just sort of like go with what the audience is telling you seems to work the
Yeah,
best.
yeah, yeah. It's fun.
You offer lots of different services, weight loss, your hormones, the lifestyle. Do you recommend that a provider that's starting out offer multiple services, which often they feel they should so that they get more traction? Or do you think they should focus on one thing and do that really well and then add services later?
I would really focus and go deep. Like, I think that was part of our success is that when you focus and go deep and you have really great success with patients, they're going to tell everyone about that. And that's where a lot of our patients have come from off of referral. And I think that's because we're very deep in what we do and we don't play around in, I mean, we don't offer like, Botox and all these other things. Like that's not our lane. We're trying to stay in our lane.
So when you have a patient that has a need, what do you do? Do you
Refer them. We give them like a couple referrals. Like, here's a couple people in the area that we know who are great at this, and we just refer it out. So we've toyed with it and adding some of those stuff, but it just doesn't. At this point, it doesn't make sense for us.
Such a smart woman. So I agree with that 100%. You want to be the authority in what you do really well. And when you're the authority and you refer out, your patients, they believe you. Okay, well, I
Yeah,
need to go to this person because otherwise it feels like you're just trying to nickel and dime me. You're trying to get more money.
100%.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
awesome. Is what
and I
you're
feel like
doing.
some of that stuff, like injectors and things like that, like that's more of a personality almost. Like you get people who are great at that, and
Yes.
let them. I want to stay out of that lane.
Let them do their thing. It's almost an art.
It
I've
100%
seen
is.
some injectors
Yeah,
and I'm like, wow, I didn't even see what you saw, and then they put a little more here, a little more there, and boom, they have art on the face.
100%. Yeah, I feel that way too. I feel like, yeah, that is an art form all by itself. So
That's so cool. So are you satisfied with what you're doing? Do you have goals and aspirations for something more, something bigger, or is this like if you reach the where you want your clinic to be?
I always want the clinic to do more. I think, at this point, we're kind of looking at some of the, stuff that comes out of longevity science and
Mhm.
looking at the data on that and how, where are we in that process? Because maybe it's not, and maybe it's not in my lifetime, but at a certain point, we will be extending not only health span, but lifespan. I don't know, it doesn't appear to me that's where we are now, but I'm looking at what are those things, and even if it's things like vitamin D
Yeah.
that are showing really positive effects on health span and potentially a couple of years on lifespan, and what are some of those other things like, rapamycin and urolithin A and those kinds of things. So I'm really interested in that arena. Like, what are the other things we could add to what we're doing that even is just incrementally extending health span?
Yeah, I
And so
love
that's
that.
my focus is just staying in that lane. And if there are, whether it's supplements or potentially a drug that's going to do those kinds of things and, shut off mTOR, do those, expand the dynamic range that we can have in terms of responding to our environment, then those are the things I want to focus on, like looking at the future.
Do you think we'll get to the point where hormones are just as common as a multivitamin and all the longevity stuff is what people are searching for in wellness?
I don't think in our lifetimes we're going to see that, because I just think there's so much fear out there
Yeah.
still about, oh, hormones are scary. The New York Times put together an article and they were like, the two that were most striking this year, the number one was like, let's extend perimenopause, which if you talk to any woman, you're going to be, yeah, I get your face, right? Like,
What?
why would we do that? They found this really curious thing. Like, if we extend perimenopause, your risk for cardiovascular disease goes down. And I'm like, yeah, well, why don't we let them transition through menopause and just give estradiol So your risk for cardiovascular disease goes down. Why would we want to extend this period of your life where you're miserable? And then the other
Yeah,
one
that
was
makes no sense. So there was, you're saying
absolutely
that
no
they would
sense.
give us a drug that would
There is
extend.
one. Yeah, there is a drug and it's got some risks. Like I think it's kind of
Holy
not great for
cow.
it's not great for your liver, but hey, you're going to be in perimenopause for longer. Can I sell you on this one?
I don't think so.
And then the other one was, they're really touting like, creatine. And so I have a lot of my patients because the first time I interact with many of them is in labs. And so I'm looking at their labs and I'm like, wow, do you have any problems with your kidneys? Have you had kidney stones? What's going on? And kidney function is really like, like not great. I'm looking for kidney function to be optimized. And people
Right.
are coming into me with low kidney function. I'm like, are you taking creatine? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, well, stop taking it because like, look at your kidneys,
Is
you
that for
know?
everybody, or is that just if people who take too much?
I'm a personal example of this. I took creatine many years ago when I was a competitive swimmer and didn't drink enough water with it, and I ended up with kidney stones. So my
Okay,
kidney
good. Thank
function
you for
is
telling me
less,
that.
yeah, is less than optimal. But so I'm making sure that if they are taking creatine, number one, their function supports it, and number two, like they're drinking enough water, so they're not getting dehydrated. They're not going to produce a bunch of kidney stones. And I'm just making them aware of, hey,
Sure.
this is processing through your kidneys. So, be careful. This is not like an innocuous supplement. It has
Right.
something, it can do some things that are not great for you long term. If you want to build muscle, like we can talk about testosterone, there's a lot of things we can talk
But I think this podcast may just help me not get a kidney stone because I take creatine
about.
every day.
Yep, be careful.
Okay, I'll be careful. What advice do you have? A new practitioner wants to open up their clinic. They don't know what they're doing. What
Yeah,
advice do you have for them?
ready, fire, aim.
Say more about that.
I mean, a lot of, I've had several providers come and shadow me to see kind of what do we do and how do we do it. But I think part of my success has been like I know the science and like I'm here to apply it
Yeah.
and without getting too hung up on, you know, 10,000 different things and making everything be perfect before, launching and really making a difference in people's lives and focusing on doing the right thing for people. But I think, you get stuck in analysis paralysis too often and then you're not helping anyone. But you have, with the education that we have, you have the ability to make dramatic changes in people's lives. And that, like, I think you should leverage that and do it. So don't get too stuck in making it perfect.
Great advice. And I know the answer, but I'll just have you say it out loud. And the education that you recommend that they go through is?
World Link Medical. So yeah, I once I met Neil, Dr. Rouzier, I took all four of his courses in succession because
Mhm.
I was obsessed at that point with really understanding this at a detailed level, and I felt like I got that out of out of those sessions. And then, I mean, the other thing is there's so many people like in our community, the WorldLink community, that are willing to help. Like if anyone called me and said, "Hey, what do you think?" And I have, providers that, we've become friends over the years and that reach out and say, "Hey, what do you think about this? And what do you think about that?" And that's something Christy Hales, who works for WorldLink, has been a great mentor for me over the years. Like, from the very beginning when I started doing hormones, I was like, oh, this I think this woman has PCOS. And so I'd send Christy a text and said, this and this and this. And, and she's like, yep. So then I, went down that path of helping those people. But there are tons of resources to help you, once you just get yourself on the journey of doing the right thing for people.
Yeah, for sure. I don't think I've had a provider on yet that wasn't WorldLink trained. I might get to that eventually, but every provider I've had on, because it is a community. It's not just an
Yeah,
organization. It's truly a community. And you're right. I've never met a provider who wasn't willing to pick up the phone, send an email, answer a text to help another provider because it's not a competitive landscape.
not at
Everyone's
all.
in it for the same thing, which is to help the patient live a great life.
Yeah. And I think the more of us that there are out there and the more it's not mainstream, but the more that this becomes the mainstream. I mean, I have patients that move all over the place and, they're looking for providers in different locations. And I always hook them up with someone who's WorldLink certified because I know that they're going to get great results from that person.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. All right. So, my last question. So, I kind of stole something. My favorite podcast is The Diary of a CEO by Steve Bartlett. Do you ever listen to that podcast?
I have not, but
I
I'm
recommend it
interested.
highly. He has the most amazing guests from business to health and everything in between. What he does is he has the last guest ask a question for the next guest, but you don't know who each other are. So I have a question for you.
Okay.
For my last guest, if you had a magic wand and money didn't matter, what would you do to make your practice the best? Or what would you do to make your practice successful professionally and personally?
And magic wand. If and if money were no object, I would want to push this out so it's more accessible to more people. That would, and I've told my wife this, if we ever win the lottery, like I'm going to do free hormones for all the patients. But just expanding our ability to reach people in different socioeconomic areas, so we can the same things that we offer to people who are able to pay out of pocket, because everything we're a cash pay practice. We don't do any kind of insurance billing, but just to be able to offer that to more people and to make it more affordable would be.
Beautiful. I love that. Annika, thank you so much. I know you interrupted your vacation to be here with us today, and so I
It's
really,
not at
really
all an
appreciate
interruption. It's really fun to talk to you.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you for being on and giving all your knowledge and wisdom to everybody.
Such that it is.
Okay. Thank you for listening to Beyond Hormones, the business of wellness. I hope that you're walking away with fresh ideas and real strategies you can use to grow your practice with profit and purpose. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to follow the show so you never miss a conversation. And if something you heard today resonated with you, do me a favor, share this episode with a friend or a colleague. It's one of the best ways you can support the show, and it might be exactly what they need to hear right now. If you want even more tools and support, go ahead and head over to acceleratedmedicalpractices.com. Until next time, keep doing the work that matters. Your patients need you, and I am cheering you along every step of the way.